Hi, I'm Marty Ramsey, and every Monday night at 8 o'clock we do, I guess, what you call spirit talk. Sometimes it's through writing, sometimes I'm just impressed to explain something to you. Uh, Sometimes it's channeling. I have been a little nervous about doing that live, so I've been taping the channeling. Tonight I am impressed with suggesting I need to explain a little more about the lightwork concepts. So I think I will try to, I'm not sure what's happening with the light. The light seems to be going brighter and dimmer. So we'll see what happens here. Do you see that? Maybe you don't see it. I do. It gets a little darker and then it gets a little lighter. Might be trying to adjust, but I'm not moving. At any rate, last week we talked about the levels of existence and suggested that there were 7, but that was really created so that we could understand better what they are telling us, which is that there are different stages, shall we say, of vibrations, and we are trying to move our vibrations up, always trying to purify ourselves, always trying to go higher and higher, as it were, and that in the light work, we believe that it is possible to follow what the teacher Jesus said when he said, I come to do this that you can do this too, to paraphrase him very weakly. In other words, we're all here to improve to that extent, which you could call ascension level. And at ascension level from last week, if you remember, what suggested is that you can take the substance, for instance, the body that you're in, and transform it into electromagnetic energy substance. And you would then, therefore, if you had that ability, you would be on that level, the high level of ascension level. And that most of us are not, and that most of us are on the 3rd level, just working our way through, doing good, sometimes not so good. That level 4 is about artists and dancers and musicians and teachers and spiritual leaders, the people who have cleaned up their act, so to speak, and are a little higher in their vibes. I would say people who run food stations for homeless. I was just reading a little blurb about Robin Williams that he had written into his contract qualifications with any contract he signed to perform, that a certain percentage of work to be employed had to come from the homeless sector, and that they had to be employed doing something. So that's very interesting that he would do that. And as sad as his demise was, he was a good person. He certainly ran amok in terms of chemical dependency at times and so on. But he did do very good things, and that's really the level that we're all pretty much on. We do very good things and then not such good things. So what about the upstairs, as my teacher used to call it? What about the heavenly heavens? Who on the other side, these higher ups, are we referring to? You know, when we do the on Sunday night, I suggest that you don't have to worry about who you send healing to, because we send out our vibes of good wishes and healing wishes, and then they're taken by these higher entities and redirected toward the people, places, and situations we're thinking of, but in the best way. So you never have to worry about whether or not this person should have the healing. Is this part of their karma, so to speak? You never have to worry about that, because it's filtered through these high entities. But we don't spend a lot of time talking about who these higher entities are. Now, if you come from a Christian background, you're likely to think of them as angels. And if you're a Muslim, you are. Perhaps even Hindus and Buddhists. Angels are kind of general name, a general name for high beings. And what would that mean, really? Now, some people feel that angels have been incarnate on this planet, have been through this human phase, and are now purified to the point where they are angelic. Others feel they never incarnated. They came right from the godhood straight into angelhood and were always angels. In the light work, we accept the idea that they have always been angels, but that's not to exclude the concept, certainly since we're here to raise our vibes as high as we can get them, that angels haven't been incarnate. It's very possible they have been. So we really include both theories in the light work. Now, what else is out there in higher entity form is the subject of my talk tonight. This gets a little contentious, a little argumentative maybe, depending on what your belief is. And again, I ask you to take what you need and leave the rest aside. If it doesn't fit with your particular ideology, leave it and just embrace your own philosophy. These things are not brought by me down in tablets forged by God. This is certainly a concept, an idea of what's out there. And if you want to embrace it, that's fine. And if you don't, that's fine too. The whole idea is anything that helps you keep on doing good works and keeps you on your path of purifying yourself is worth hanging on to. And anything that gets in your way is not. So I like to explain this, and Spirit, of course, helped me. I channeled this a long time ago. So it's not like I'm just coming up with this. Hi, Kat. It has been given to me, and it was probably given to me 40 years ago. And I embrace it, I accept it, it works for me. It's a story, and it's a story of a cave. Now, Plato wrote an essay, and of course he was way before the time of Christ. and he was a philosopher, and he wrote things down, unlike Socrates, who did not. So Plato tried to capture what it was like for an enlightened being to be on the planet trying to enlighten others. And he used the example of a cave. And he gave the story that what if people lived in caves, that they lived in a big, big cave, a single cave. And there were fires all over this cave that brought light to the cave. And that one day, this very, very adventurous person found the entrance to the cave and walked out of it and saw the cave was in a hill, and it was on the side of the hill. So he decided to climb to the top, and he did. He climbed to the top of this hill, and it was kind of a semi-darkness that he was climbing in. He could see where he was going enough to get there, and finally he reached the top. Now, he was tired from his climbing, so he sat down. And from the rim of the hills in the distance, the sun began to come out and shine. And he was amazed. It was so brilliant he dared not look at it directly, but he looked sideways at this enormous light, 1,000,000 times brighter than any of their cave fires. And it warmed the hills, and it warmed him, and it brought all of this beauty of the hills to him, and he was amazed. Hi, Ida. And so he thought, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is wonderful. Look at this. So he was so excited. He couldn't get back down to the cave fast enough after the sun was climbing in the sky and kind of, to him, had settled down to a pace in which it was moving across the sky. So he went back to the cave, and he went in the cave, and he followed and followed until he got to the part where everybody lived. And he started to explain this incredible sight that he had seen. And nobody believed him. And nobody cared about it. And nobody listened. And nobody paid any attention. They just went on about their business. They were very content with their fires. And the Plato story, of course, is, the moral of the story is, even if you have wonderful news, and even if you try to spread that wonderful news, you have to lower your expectations, but not necessarily. Without a doubt, every scientist that you hear who studies the heavens has said by now it's obvious that given the number of stars out there and planets out there, we couldn't possibly be the only planet or star with life on it. And since this universe is so much older than planet Earth, it's certainly possible that there have been evolved beings on other planets far longer than we have been evolving, millions of years ahead of us. I think that if you find learned scientists within the straightforward mainstream of astronomy, you will find all of them saying something like that. And yet, nobody seems to believe that we've ever been visited. Somehow we've been ignored. This universe is teeming with life that is millions of years older than we are, and somehow said, no, don't go to that wonderful blue planet with all the water and the nutrients on it. No. Leave that one alone and go everywhere else. Doesn't make sense, does it? So you've got bunches of people, I think immediately of that television show, Ancient Astronauts, and Ancient Aliens, and visits and so on, showing us all this stuff on the planet that couldn't possibly have been done by the people who were living there at the time, and drawings of beings who have space helmets on, and all of this stuff, and pilots who have seen flying things, and all, it's endless, the anecdotes that we have welcomed visitors to this planet, whether we knew it or not, and yet nobody cares, and nobody believes it, and everybody goes about their business as usual. It isn't upsetting, it isn't alarming, it isn't anything. We're kind of schizophrenic about it. We accept the fact, yeah, there could be, and then we just disown any proof that that's so. And the same mainstream astronomers and scientists who accept the fact that the universe is probably are the same ones who say we don't have any proof they've ever been here. Really strange. And so I think of the story that Plato told way before Christ was born. People are not ready to accept that, and so they simply don't. I think you could probably have space beings landing on the White House lawn, and some people would believe that, and others would say it was just staged on some soundstage. Even if it were true, there'd be people who didn't believe it. They would, there are still literally people who don't believe we ever went to the moon. Now, if you're as old as I am, you saw Walter Cronkite reporting it. It was pretty real at the time. I want to tell you, they cut into NASA. Everybody was glued to their old black and white sets, and we watched that, and we watched the fuzzy pictures, and it would have been really hard to duplicate all those hours and hours. But if you're too young to have been around when that happened, and even if you aren't, you could easily dismiss it as made up. People see what they want to see, believe what they want to believe. So I'm not tonight going to convince you of anything. You either have a gut feeling that it's on target, or it fits with your belief system, or you're ready to accept it, or you're not. And I say don't waste a lot of time fighting me or it or anything. Just take what you need. Because what Spirit gave me about 40 years ago was an adaptation of the essay, Plato's essay, The Cave. And what it told me was this: What if we were all living in caves, like Plato's essay, and we were happy there? We had great buildings there, and we had a way to light the thing, fires and such, that worked for us, and we were happy there. We had even found a way to create electricity, and we had electricity, and we were okay in this cave. And what this cave represents is our life right now on this planet. Pretty content with how far it is right now. Not everybody is, certainly. I really speak to the majority of us comfortable Americans who have fairly decent homes, fairly decent shelter, pretty good food. You know, it's not so bad. Sometimes times are tough, but we get by. Now, we live but a short time on this planet, and then we pass. Now, what the spirit guides were showing me was, it's as if we passed through the walls of this cave, and now we're on the outside, and that a human's passing is no more than that. It's just like slipping outside the walls of a cave and discovering with great relish that instead of being nothing, you're in a crystal city. It's beautiful there. Oh, it's gorgeous. Everything is just incredible. It's brilliant. It's rainbows. It's crystals. It's gorgeous. It's wonderful. Not only that, but everybody you ever knew who had passed is there to greet you. They assembled just to welcome you to this beautiful place. And all the animals you ever took care of that you had any investment in emotionally, they're there too. Why, this is homecoming. This is wonderful. This is fabulous. And now there are other beings there. There are very high beings there. Beyond just family and friends, this is the Crystal City, kind of equivalent to the Emerald City in The Wizard of Oz, but way beyond that. It's way beyond emeralds. It's hard surfaces, soft surfaces, rivers, streams, trees, beyond nature. It's buildings beyond buildings, and the entities are incredible. You've got family and friends, but you've got what we would call angels and archangels, all the company of what we call heaven. This is magnificent. The singing, the music, the senses, it goes so much farther beyond our five senses. It's incredible. Well, it takes you a while to get adjusted. You realize that you were coming back, and you are coming back to this wonderful place, and you begin to remember, yes, I remember. I took part of who I am, and I slid into that cave via a woman, and I was born and raised there so that I could work on some aspects of myself that I wanted to work on. It was a workshop all that time. And I had some of my friends from the Crystal City with me so that it would be a little easier. And I also, if I was a woman, I may have brought more entities in through me. And if I was a man, I generated that. So I begin to see that that cave was a workshop. When this is home, this is wonderful. I also realize that the ones back in the cave aren't moving very fast. I tried a lot. I worked very hard on myself. I made some advances. I can see that I'm a little purer, a little higher, a little more refined. I also understand that if they could realize they're in a workshop, it isn't the end-all and be-all of existence. It's just a phase. And it's a phase in which they are very limited and selective in what they work on. They work on themselves and they grow and they learn, they go to school, they have friends and family and stuff, but this is so expansive. This is incredible. If I could just go back and tweak their consciousness a little bit, if I could somehow get back inside that cave a little bit, just enough to kind of raise their awareness a little bit so that they could get better faster, so they could work on themselves, make faster improvements and stuff. Wouldn't that be great? Oh, that'd be great. So I go to the wall of the cave and I start trying to just kind of penetrate that wall and get a little into that cave. And I'm able to temporarily kind of get into the cave where I can be there, but not in the form they are. I'm not in a physical body anymore. I am this incredible cluster of vibrations, and I'm coming back to do good works. I want to tell these people about this. So I go around the people I knew, and maybe it was my daughter, or maybe a cousin, or a brother, or someone, and I recognize them, and I get close to them because, boy, I don't know how I'm going to communicate with them, but I'm going to try to open their consciousness to what lies beyond this cave and what possibilities there are. And all they do is cry. And they turn to the next person, they say, I miss her so, she was so nice. And I realize that my vibrations are causing that. And I don't know what to do. I can't get close, because if I get close to them, they start crying. They miss me. So I don't know what to do. I'm trying to impart this wonderful information. I'm trying to just give them a taste of what it might be like beyond this, to me, what looks now like more like a prison. It looked great when I was there, but it looks kind of confining now. You're stuck in those flesh bodies, and you only have 2 arms, and you have eyes that only see forward, and you can only hear a certain number of sounds and see a certain number of wavelengths in light, and gosh, how limiting that is. And I want to tell everybody about it some more. So, wait, you know what? When I was alive, I remember people who were called psychics. And they purported to channel. And what they purported to do is channel entities like myself who told them stuff. And then they would bring it to the general public or to people came to them asking if they could contact a member of their family. So I think what I'll do is try to find one of them. And what I'll do, of course, I don't know if my relative will ever go to them, so the odds of my connecting with them are pretty slim, but at least I could tell this psychic what's over here so that they could impart it to at least people so that people get an idea that this is just the beginning. And that's what I do. Now, my vibes aren't as high as some of the angels, but I am able to connect with some of the psychics and impart a limited amount of information. Some of them can read me or get what I'm communicating better than others. But that's what I do. And then finally I realize I've probably done what I could. And I depart. I come back through the wall of the cave into the Crystal City. And now it's time for me to explore this beautiful place. And it's more than a city. It's a city, a country, a state, a universe. It's fabulous, fabulous. I realize I could spend eternity examining it. And I begin to look at the population. And I realize that there are entities here that we would call angels when I lived in the cave. And yet there are also entities from other places in the universe that the people in the cave thought of as alien beings. Very, very evolved creatures. And beyond creatures even. They're like angels. They're kind of a form of angels. Very good. The goodness is there. They are pure. And they inhabit other planets. And then I begin to realize that I am able to move from planet to planet, and that some of these planets are incredible, and that these beings, these incredible beings that inhabit them, are beyond any kind of description I could have taken back to explain to humans. They're fabulous, and there are an endless variety of them. And now I realize that some of them may have kind of squeezed themselves into a human-like form to come to the earth because we were so primitive and help us to grow. But that's not their usual form. They kind of reduce their vibrations into compartment which kind of looked human-like, where they could appear so that humans could accept them. And that gradually, as humans got a little more sophisticated, those entities really stopped coming and visiting. They gave us the basic tools. When I was in human form, I knew these things. They gave us the seeds with which to grow. So then I really begin the rest of my adventures out there. And I am a little sad that I can't really spark much in the cave, but I also realize that these beings have seeded us, and that I may even at some point wish to come back as a human into this cave to work on myself some more, because I'm also realizing how high these people are, or beings are, and how I would like to grow and become more expanded and higher. And that is the story that the spirit guides gave me that expands Plato's cave essay. And Kathy, you're saying you dream of beings in caves. It's possible that you're getting a reminder, an image. It's kind of an example, I think. A cave represents a certain boundary set up. There are certainly, definitely boundaries. Caves have beginnings and ends. There's only so much space in them, whereas space as we know it is pretty much endless. So it's possible it's a metaphor for that. Be interesting to see what happens with these beings, and you may have been exposed to Plato's essay at some point, just briefly. But that is Spirit's concept of passing over and what to expect. Now, I learned that 40 years ago, and I can remember at one point I was quite taken with that. I was, wow, passing over is really passing, like passing through the walls of a cave, and man, we get to go big time, and we get to really live after that. I thought about the fact that when somebody near to me comes close to me, I do feel the sadness, and you know what I do? I ask them to back up a little bit. The other day I thought of something. Of course, I'm old, and both my parents have passed. God, they'd be well over 100. And I felt Daddy's vibes were very close, and I felt I was going to cry, and I said, Daddy, I love you. Could you just move back a little bit? And then I didn't feel like crying anymore. And that happened also right after he passed. I would ask him to do that so I could function, because I had just started working as an addiction therapist, and I had to listen to other people and their pain and sorrow and so forth, and I really couldn't be all involved in my own. So I would ask him to stay back at least until I got home, where I could then do any grieving I needed to do. So it's a thought if you have some grieving feelings and you know that the person you're feeling, or even the pet, because pets have caretakers over there. You can ask your pet's caretaker to move them back a little bit so you can go on with your day. So I realized that there's a whole life out there, that this is very limited, and it's only three-dimensional, and that there are many dimensions, which I can't really, when you think about many dimensions, I'm in this three-dimensional personhood thing, and it's really hard for me to conceptualize more than time and height and depth. And I suppose the fourth dimension would be time. So I get that one, but beyond that, I don't know. It's pretty complicated to me. But I do realize that we are quite contained. And we're in these flesh bodies so that we don't scatter so much, so that we can keep it together, as it were, and focus on a very narrow range of things. Now, you may think we know a lot about a lot of things, or a little about a lot of things, and we think about everything. It's all enormous and vast, but in terms of the amount of information available in the universe, we're like eeny beeny teeny weeny tiny bit of it, and it's purposeful. We've done this purposely so we could work on certain aspects of ourselves. Think of it. What are the weaknesses you think you have, that you're kind of working on during this lifetime? And you're probably right. Those probably are weaknesses you're probably working on during this lifetime. And we come here so that we can focus more. Someone explained it, Gestalt, that German word Gestalt, which means totality, a complete thing in its completeness. And when something forms a Gestalt, it forms a completeness, a whole. And someone explained that to me, that it's like a shield. A shield of armor, like the old medieval shields that people carried into battle. And it's like you're polishing a shield. And you polish a little part of it, and you polish a little part of it, and you polish a third part of it, and all of a sudden you polish the whole shield, and it shines brilliantly. And that would be a Gestalt. And I think that it's a great analogy when you think of it, that we come into this world to polish up some stuff, to really work at some stuff on this planet. And then if we do that enough, we complete it, and we polish the whole, essence of our being. And it's a Gestalt, and for us in the spiritual terms, it would be purity to ascension level, which is quite a feat, I think. I also had my teacher explain it to me very simply. She said, look in a mirror, and then on a piece of paper with a pencil, try to draw your face. Now, unless you're an accomplished artist, and even so, one look in a mirror, and then you're going to look on a piece of paper and draw an exact picture of yourself as you looked in that mirror, are you? Now, so think of this. Think of what I said at the beginning. Define ascension, what Jesus was able to do, to take every single atom and molecule, substance of his body and transform it into electromagnetic energy substance that looked exactly like he did as a human being. You remember how he comes in the Bible and says, "Don't touch me, I'm not quite finished yet, not quite finished making this yet." And then later on, doubting Thomas, one of the disciples, was able to actually touch him where the wound had been, and it was just like it was. Now, is that, when you think about it that way, is that an incredible thing? And so, when I say we're working our way back and we're trying to achieve ascension level, I mean that's a pretty incredible accomplishment to achieve ascension, and for Jesus to do it. Wow. And of course, in other religions, others did it. You know, Muhammad did it. I don't know if Buddha actually ascended in front of people or not. Can't remember. But this is an incredible accomplishment. So we come in these imperfect little bodies and we polish up our shield. We take a little section of it and we polish it up. We work on ourselves and we get that good. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm not going to take on reincarnation tonight. I'm going to leave that for another time. I think that there's a volume of information in this essay on the cave. Both Plato's, if you want to read it, it's there. I'm sure Google has it. And the expanded story that Spirit gave me 40 years ago. You may want to play this video again for yourself and think about the concept. I think it feels good to know that passing is just this incredible thing. Now, we're wired to resist passing. You have to understand, it doesn't mean that we'll be laughing and dancing. Oh, I'm going to die. Ha, ha, ha. That's not the point. The point is, because we come here to make sure that we don't go back. It's like, wow, this is tough, I'm getting out of here. And unfortunately, some people do feel that way and do what we call commit suicide. They want to get back over. It's just too much for them. But most of us are wired we would not do that because we're here to learn things and to grow. And so to prevent that from happening, most of us are wired to absolutely resist fear, back away from, push away from passing with lots of energy so that we will stay to the very last moment and do what we came to do. However, beyond that, it's certainly nice to tuck away in the back of your head that once that resistance is gone and you are finally going to be passing, that is what you're going to be greeted with. You're going to be greeted with something that makes this limited lifetime seem like you were in a cave. Now, I don't know about you, but when I see a creek, a bubbling creek, a beautiful ocean wave, a majestic mountain, it's like, I don't want to leave any of this. This is a beautiful planet. And I will just leave you with this because there's more to say about what happens after you pass. Who said you ever have to leave it entirely? So there. So we have other things to cover now. Want to talk about reincarnation? What about this reincarnation? Want to talk about why we don't have to leave the planet necessarily? It is a beautiful planet. It's rather uneven. The planet is beautiful. It's wild. You also have the floods and volcanoes and tornadoes and things. But it's a fascinating place, you have to admit that. And then, do we get to come back? I guess I've hinted at polishing the shield that maybe there's something to that, so we'll see. Until then, have a wonderful week, and we will see you maybe Sunday night for the healing. And Kathy, I'd love to meet you too. And perhaps we do astrally meet. I know you're in Texas, so it's possible that might not happen very soon. You never know, because I'm up here in New York State. But who knows? We'll leave that up to spirit. My teacher used to say, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. So have a beautiful, beautiful week, and enjoy. Do all the things that you would do to create a better world and a better person. And you're from New York? Hey, Syracuse being on the news, I think nationally now. We've had that overpass that was put through the city, and now, like Boston, they're going to tear it down. I'm sure it'll take them 10 years, but they're going to take down the overpass and put a boulevard through the city, and there's already a pass kind of turnpike that will get big truckers around, because between Canada and Florida, we are a flow-through city. Trucking comes right down through the middle of us, down 81, all the way to Florida, really. And so they're going to do that. So we're sometimes on the national news right now because this is a $2 billion project. Amazing. At any rate, have a great week and enjoy. And we will see you Sunday night for the healings. Good night. God bless you.